Hello and welcome. I'm Deanna Kavunda, and joining me today for a very special Zoom interview is Louisa Pateman. She is the Australian author of Single Again and Again and Again. What do you do when life doesn't go to plan? She's a successful career woman, an avid traveler, having ventured to over 70 countries, a lover of camping and girly get-togethers, and a proud property owner. Louisa wrote her memoir following her unsuccessful 20-year pursuit of her happily ever after. For years, she tried eagerly to fulfill her life plan, the path set by society: find her soulmate, get married, and have children. But after a dozen failed relationships and a biological clock that was about to expire, she had to concede defeat and give up her dreams of finding the one. In order to salvage her last remaining chance at motherhood, at 37, she embarked on a journey to become a single mother by choice. It turned out to be the best decision of her life. Thank you so much for being here, Louisa.
Thanks, Danette. It's lovely to be here.
So, how hard was it to choose the path to solo motherhood?
Yeah, look, it wasn't an easy choice and it wasn't an easy path to take, um, even though it was my best decision. And so in my 20s and 30s, I really wanted to get my happily ever after, which is defined by fairy tales. And society always talks about finding, settling down and finding your husband and having children. And that came from everywhere. It came from Hollywood, even, where the girl always gets the guy, and pressure from family and from religion and everywhere around. And so when I was in my 20s and 30s, I spent a lot of time trying to get my happily ever after. And as I got into my late 20s and 30s, my friends were all starting to get married and have children, and I found that very difficult. But I still wasn't willing to give up that dream. And even though I felt like the third wheel at times, and I found it very difficult when I was single, I still wanted that. And it wasn't until I got into my late 30s that I finally came to terms with in needing to take a different path. But it was a very difficult decision to make, even though it was a great decision to make.
And you say that you had to revise your life plans 8 times.
Yeah.
What made you realize that it was time to let go of that life plan?
Yeah, look, I'm an engineer and I like to plan and I like to organize. So I have my lists. And so when I was in my teens, just for fun, the girls and we put together a life plan, which was basically find your soulmate, spend a couple of years together, get engaged, get married, and have kids, or before I turned 30, because 30 was so old. And so as I went through my 20s, and I'd have a relationship, but then it would fail. So then I'd squash my plan. And instead of being together for 2 years, it might be 1 year. And then as another fun relationship, it'd be 6 months. And so I kept squashing it up. And then I got to 30 and I had passed the deadline. And then I started to panic a little bit. And it wasn't until I got into my mid 30s, or started to get to my late 30s, I decided to freeze my eggs. But I found that statistically, that was not going to be an insurance plan. And so I needed to look outside the square. And up until that point, I wanted serendipity. So I wanted the universe to deliver me my soulmate, our paths to cross and fall in love, but it didn't happen. And so I decided to do internet dating, which I hadn't done before. And it was at that point in time that I had dated the worst guy. I say the worst guy, but had the most disastrous relationship. And I mean disastrous in terms of the type of guy I was dating, not necessarily heartbreak. And so in my 20s, I had my bar up here. And then in my 30s, I lowered my bar. And then by the time I got to my late 30s, there was no bar. And I'm like, oh. And so I dated this guy, and it was just so disastrous. And I just thought, oh my goodness, if that is all that is left out there, I'm done. I'm done. I'm going to go down and salvage motherhood and do this alone. So yeah, that was when I knew it was the last straw.
And what inspired you to tell your story?
Yeah, look, once I decided on this path, I decided to own it. So no one else was walking in my shoes. No one was traveling a parallel journey to me. And so I made this decision, and I decided to tell people, well, this is what I've done. And I'm 37 and I want to have children, and I haven't met someone. And And yeah, look, I got a lot of positive feedback. And what I ended up finding was a lot of people would ask me questions and say, oh, can you just talk to my daughter? Or can you talk to my granddaughter? Or can you talk to my niece or even my sister over in America? And I was getting all these requests, and I realized that there's actually a lot of interest in the topic. And so I wanted to put it out there for people who are in a similar situation. And then once I started writing it, I realized I had a voice. And it's like, I want to start talking about happily ever after and the impact that has. And I also want to start some conversations about having the courage to be single. You know, I've led a fantastic life. I've been to plenty of countries. I've had a great career, and I've done that on my own. And although that may have been very difficult at times to do, I did it, and I'm so grateful that I did it. So just to inspire women to have that courage to go out there and live your life.
Would you say that you did find your happily ever after now that you've got your little
Yeah.
boy?
Yes, look, I found my own definition of happily ever after. So I have redefined happily ever after. So no, I didn't get society's definition of happily ever after or what you get in the fairy tales, but I got my own. And so what I realized in hindsight was instead of chasing the guy, instead of chasing your soulmate or chasing getting married, I should have been chasing happiness, you know, and happiness comes in different forms. And so I have happiness. It just happens to be in a different form to what society defined as happiness or defined as success. And so, yeah, look, I'm very happy, and I have my own version of happily ever after.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. To learn more about Louisa and her journey, please visit her website at louisapateman.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeanette.